There we go. Okay, I want to start this off a little special. What's up, YouTube? Hope you're all having a great day today. Sorry, I had to do that. I had to get that out of the way.
All good.
So one thing I do want to start off with saying is this podcast is in honor of the lost lives in a crash here in Billings recently. It's Christine, Connor, Tommy, and Lindsay. They went to school with me. I never really knew them, but I do want to start off by saying that. But so a little introduction for our guest today. He has the most all-time wins at the Red Bluff Outlaws, a few 360 sprint car wins, a few limited sprint car wins. It's Tanner Holmes.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show. That's a great introduction. It's got a nice ring to it with the 41 wins, and just thank you so much for having me on today.
Of course. I do have a few questions, so we'll start off with some of those. So this is one I've been wondering about, because in the vlog from last Saturday, you were more mentioning about how you were going for 3 in a row. Was that more what you were focused on, or were you more focused on the fact that that would be your 41st win?
Every single night when we show up, our goal is just to win races. It's kind of hard to not be focused on that. And obviously 3 in a row is cool. That's really hard to do. And it's hard to win 41 times at Red Bluff and chasing win number 41. I think throughout the night, you kind of keep it in the back of your mind. Obviously, that's really cool that we're able to accomplish that. And at the time we were chasing it. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're just there to win races. And that's the most important thing about it. So honestly, I wasn't even really thinking about 3 in a row. I wasn't thinking about win number 41. My goal going into that A main event is what can I do to put myself in the best position possible to win this race? And then you happen to win, and then you pull into victory lane and you think 3 in a row. That's when that kind of pops in my mind. And then win number 41. So it's just crazy how all that happens, but just so thankful for the opportunities that I've been presented and to have a chance to be in that spot to, I guess, top that record.
Definitely something I wish I was able to do. I look back through your YouTube and you're like, you started at such a young age, and I was never able to do that. Of course, living where I am, there's not a lot of tracks nearby, and as well as we never had enough money to ever really go racing, which sort of leads into the second question. What's it like having your sister following your footsteps? Because obviously I have 3 brothers, one of which wants to be a cop. The other is a rough stock rider in rodeo. And the other really is too young to know what he wants to do yet. So I've never really had that for me.
Yeah, following or having Carly follow in my footsteps, I guess you could say, it's an honor. It's so cool to have that younger sibling. And, I get a little bit of flack for it. People always like to joke with me that, Carly's going to be the better sibling, or Carly's going to, win this or win that. So it's great to have that competition. And I think overall, even though we're kind of 3 years apart, so we have a little bit of, I guess you could say, age gap between us. We're not, maybe we didn't grow up racing in the same class door to door every single week. But there have been points where we have raced against each other. So overall, it's just really cool that we get that opportunity to be at the same track on the same night and race in some of the same races. And overall, I think it makes both of us better because there's that competitive side to us. I mean, we could we could be competitive over anything. It doesn't just be racing. We can go outside and play basketball and shoot hoops and be competitive over that. Heck, when we were younger, we used to race up the stairs, and we would push each other down racing up the stairs. So
sounds like me with my brothers.
Yeah, you get it. So it's just that competitive nature in us, and it's just so cool that we have that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I have my brothers, and whenever our dad calls us, we're always racing and pushing each other. I'm pretty sure a couple times I've hurt my brothers trying to get there first because I always want to win.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, I can relate to that.
Definitely. So this is kind of start to feel a little more podcast-like, but I think there's 2 more big questions on here that I want to ask you. And this one I've been wondering for a while. What's your favorite paint scheme that you have run?
Oh, favorite paint scheme. I would probably say my favorite one is It's actually, well, I have like two. The main one is my Red Bull KTM car. It was orange. It was super cool. I was thinking if I have a picture of it on my wall here, but I don't. But it was orange. It had the Red Bull logo on it. It had KTM on there. That was one of my favorites just because of how that debuted and how that turned out. Like, it couldn't have turned out any better. Like, that was
It
probably
looks
one of the
sick.
coolest schemes. Yeah, probably one of the coolest schemes in Outlaw Carts. I'll be biased to say that. And then another one of my favorites is actually one of our first QRC house cars. It was super simple, but like simple to me is cool. It was like a nice like matte black car with a carbon fiber body with just stickers on it. So like I like a simple look like that as well. You could go either, because my Red Bull KTM orange car was a little bit crazier. You know, there was a lot of a design to it in colors and in matching versus my favorite QRC scheme that we've done was just super, super simple, but that's always a clean look.
Yeah, definitely. I always think of the one that is you've got it on your wall and it's huge. It's the I always
Oh yeah,
call it Dale Earnhardt scheme.
yeah, it looks just like it.
hmm Or it's not really something you intentionally ran, but it was the I think you call it the Cheetos scheme.
Yes, yep. The Cheeto car, it was the Red Bull KTM wing. Yes, it was the Red Bull KTM wing with that sail panel, and then it had a blue body. It had our blue hood, a blue tail,
hmm
and it literally looked like a Cheeto bag. Like the colors of the blue and the
Yeah.
orange was perfect. And maybe one of these days we'll have to bring that back. But actually, like maybe if we could get sponsored by
Definitely.
Cheetos one of these days or something, make a cool scheme like that.
hmm What's the story behind that? Like, I think I've heard it, but I'm forgetful like that. What is the story behind that car?
So I was running my blue scheme at the time, and I flipped in a heat race at Red Bluff during the night, in the 250 class. So I flipped midway through the night, destroyed the wing, and we did not have another blue wing. We only had another orange wing, which was my scheme from the previous year. So we put the orange wing on. It also wrecked the sail panel, which is the panel on the right by the right
hmm
rear, which helps with aero on outlaw
Yeah.
carts. And excuse me, they put the orange one from the orange car on as well. So it was just a combination of both schemes, and it actually turned out to like kind of look pretty cool. And that was
hmm
a great color combo.
Yeah, I really like that scheme, and if that thing came back, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And with outlaw carts, I've tossed it around a bunch, but I've always thought it would be cool to run outlaw carts, and I actually tossed out to my friends today of like renting that. I think it's U2 now, the Arrive and Drive outlaw cart, and maybe hauling up to California and going to the West Coast Nationals and running the night there. That would
Yeah,
be
that would be really fun. It's cool that they have a couple programs that kind of do that, and outlaw carts are just such a treat. There's not a whole lot of other things, I guess, in the racing world like them.
Mhm. Um, I have a few other questions, but I can, skip them for now. Um, it's been a while since I did a podcast, so
All good.
I apologize for any unprofessionalness. I thought I was prepared for this, but I really guess I wasn't. I guess you came up to Montana a few times recently.
Yes.
Um, what's your besides for the Big Sky Cartway? What's your favorite track out here?
My favorite track in Montana is the Electric City Speedway. It's in Great Falls. I guess it's pretty far north in the state, I think, but more on the western side, closer to Idaho and Washington. But super neat track, super slick. The facility wasn't the greatest, but I mean the racing surface and the track itself was one of the best I'd have ever seen. So definitely want to get back up there. Billings was really cool as well. It took rubber both nights, which that's just part of it. The material I think the material they have to work with isn't I think ideal for what they're going for, but they're doing their best. And Big Sky was definitely the nicer of the two facilities wise. So definitely want to get back up to both of them. I've never been to Belgrade, which Belgrade's kind of right in the middle towards Bozeman. Maybe we'll get a chance to do that here in 2021. But overall, all the tracks in Montana seem super nice, and you guys have a pretty good little sprint car scene up there.
Yeah, you mentioned about how it wasn't the greatest material for the track. That's something a lot of the drivers out here tend to like. They don't. It gets really rough when it's not like the sprint car nights. Like the sprint car nights, it tends to be super rubber down,
Yeah.
and but usually it's like one time I was out there helping the guy I always help out, and he hit a bump. I think it was either a bump or a pothole, I think is what he called it, in the middle of the track in the corner. And he broke the I can't think of what the spindle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he came in and his tires like this. And it was like, whoa.
Really?
Yeah. It was
That's crazy. Yeah, I know in Montana, the track wasn't really rough at all for us, which, like you said, it kind of smoothens out on the sprint car nights. It just it was cool how wide it was, though. You know, the tracks up there seem to have a lot of room to race.
Yeah, one thing I really like about it is the way that you don't have that wall right up top. You kind of, if you blow that cushion, there's not that wall there. It's just, you kind of slide off the top. You lose a lot of spots, but it's better than just wreck it.
Oh, 100%.
But I've never personally raced, but I've always thought it would be cool to race some of the, like if I ever raced, I would want to try out sprint cars and outlaw cars at least once. What is it? What is it like racing something as fast, and I guess they're sort of more unstable, I guess.
Yeah, they can be. Wing sprint cars they're unstable, but what's nice is they have the wing on top, which provides a lot of downforce. So the cars kind of are really planted into the racetrack. And I would say wing, it's not easy to drive them, but in a way, it's easy to turn laps. It's hard to be fast. So figuring out how to drive a wing sprint car and set up a wing sprint car are the biggest challenges. Outlaw carts, they're just out of control. Being honest, they have a lot of horsepower. They accelerate very quickly. You can make a little bit of contact with other drivers, so I think it's a little bit more of a contact form of racing. We obviously try to just stray away from that, but it just does happen, and we're in such tight racetracks. So outlaw carts, they're just they're a completely different beast than a sprint car, but both of them teach you unique things. Like I believe outlaw carts taught me how to be aggressive and be up on the wheel, and then you can kind of transition that over to a sprint car and learn how to be calm and behind the wheel as well. So there's many different goods or pros and cons from each of them, but overall, I don't think you can go wrong with sitting behind the wheel of either one of them.
Yeah, over the summer, I went back and I watched a bunch of the Red Bluff Outlaw races from last year on one of your sponsors. I think they're one of your sponsors, Fast Four Media.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely chaotic in some of those races. You can tell that they're pretty tough to drive.
Oh, it's up on the wheel. It's intense. That's a great word for them. And it's hard to be fast because you can be the fastest car and still not have things go your way. So especially at a place like Red Bluff or Cycling, you got to have luck on your side to be the man standing at the top of the podium on at the end of the night.
Definitely. And one thing that like I said, I've never raced, but I always figured it would be a lot harder than like modifieds to like the way the sprint cars are to like I don't know how to explain it. You watch the onboard and it's like you're wheeling it a lot more than like with the modified.
I would agree. I think you're just up on the wheels so much, and you have to have quick reflexes, and at high speeds, you gotta be able to make it happen.
And those things are tight. Like I've tried to climb in one of those. Like you have to have like a perfect fit, and it's still even then tight to get in.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Like I think if I ever race a sprint car, I'm gonna have to study the way people get in because it looks difficult.
Yeah, it can be tight. It just takes a little bit to get in and kind of figure out how to get your legs through and in the right spot. Believe it or not, I actually like how you sit in a sprint car. It's real straight up and down. It's comfortable. Outlaw carts are comfortable as well, but to me, it's not as comfortable. You have your legs out in front of you versus your legs below you, like you're sitting in a rocking chair or something. So both of them are unique in that way. And once you kind of figure it out, it's not as bad.
Yeah, and the wheel is weird on a sprint car too. Like usually you see wheels like this. It's like this. Like
yeah, it's more like you're driving like a school bus or something. It's the wheel placement's also different than an outlaw cart, where an outlaw cart's more in front of you. Sprint car is a little bit more flat.
And I went back and I watched a bunch of old videos of yours today. And one thing that caught my eye, I was watching, you were talking, it was the test video with Carly. You were testing the sprint car with her. You mentioned you liked your wheel clicked one to the left. Why is that?
So sprint cars have stagger, which pretty much means how much bigger the right rear is than the left rear, and then that helps the car turn. Other forms of racing have that as well in dirt track. depending on what you are. And sprint cars on average, I mean, it really just depends whether it's a limited 360, 410, but you could maybe have upwards of 16 or 17 inches of stagger, maybe down to, 9 or 10 inches, just depending on track conditions. And I like to have the wheel clicked over because once, like, how your car rolls in the pits is different than once it's up to power. So when you're up to speed, you don't feel that stagger. But when you are like riding through the pits or under yellow, you try to get it comfortable to where your hands are in a spot you like it. So mine are a little bit to the left, I believe, or no, mine are a little to the right, because I have to turn the wheel under yellow to keep the car to roll straight with the stagger, because the stagger wants to take me left, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how you want your wheel placed on for yourself, just whatever is comfortable. Every driver is different. I started off having my wheel like way click to the left. So then when I would straighten out, my hands would be straight, but then under green flag, my hands would be messed up. So it's like just figuring out, what works as a driver. And it's a little bit complicated, and it can be frustrating when you're first starting out.
And the thing about racing is, and it's like the whole reason I don't race at the moment, it's so expensive. Like,
Yeah.
I went back and I watched your T2 Arrive and Drive video, and it's like, that's looking at the prices for outlaw cards, that's a cheap price to race an outlaw card.
Yeah, that is a good price. And a lot of other forms of racing are much more expensive. And I think that's what's appealing about kart racing, is it is fairly cheap compared to other forms. And it all just depends on, I guess, markets and economy and where things are going, and everything's just getting more and more expensive, which is unfortunate because it doesn't allow for new guys to get involved with the sport. But I think we just kind of hope to keep our faith and hope the best, comes from that. And it just makes all of us guys, try to be more creative about how we can spend a couple extra dollars at the dirt track.
Here's a little question about, this one's more or less for me. What track do you prefer between the Big Sky Speedway here in Billings and the track in my former hometown, Sweetwater Speedway?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd probably say, well, in the current condition that I saw each of them, probably, man, well, I ran a little bit better at Sweetwater, so I'll say Sweetwater. I think Sweetwater has potential to be a really good racetrack. The only issue is they just don't, I think, have the right equipment. So it does tend to take rubber like it did up in Big Sky. But one thing that was cool about Sweetwater is how banked it was. I think it could be a phenomenal racetrack and have a lot of great racing if they just were able to get it to where it was tilled up and had some grip, and then eventually slicked off. But Billings was also really cool, not to knock that place at all. I just struggled a little bit more there.
Yeah, there was no wrong answer to that question, because this summer I'm going to be down in Sweetwater. So
that's awesome.
But back to outlaw carts. For someone like me, if I wanted to just go jump in to an outlaw cart for a race, but I also wanted to kind of get that experience working. Like, I obviously already have some experience working. If I just wanted to get that sort of experience working, would you say to like just go buy one, or do the 350 package with the Arrive and Drive?
It's tough. I think, it all depends on the person, but I can tell, like, for example, yourself, like you really are interested in the racing thing. So it's not like it's something you're not going to like. I think if someone had the funds to go get a card, I would definitely recommend it if that's something they would want to pursue. It all comes down to your area. Like, you're not in a great area for outlaw car racing because they haven't expanded there yet, really, versus like where they're at in Northern California. But, for someone that lives in the Northern California or even Central California area, or even in Oregon, outlaw kart racing is a great route to getting started. It really just comes down to where you're located at and what's the best way to get started in dirt track racing there. Because, like, yes, you could go buy a cart, but then it's like, okay, where do you go race? And that's the tough part of the game we play.
And what sucks is I plan on going to college in Ohio, and they haven't really expanded there yet either.
They will be there soon, hopefully, though.
Yeah, let's hope so, because there's this college I'm hoping to go to in Ohio. You might have heard of them, UNOH.
Oh, yeah.
They have a whole racing team there, so hopefully I can get on that. And if so, I can also get enough money to maybe buy an outlaw cart. So
That'd be sweet.
yeah, because while modifieds seem fun, not to use bad language, but outlaw carts seem fun.
That's good.
So here's a little interesting question. Besides not including tracks in Oregon, Washington, and California, what's your favorite track to race at?
Oh, so you're saying no tracks on the West Coast?
No West Coast tracks.
Okay, no West Coast tracks. I would probably say, let's see, probably the 81 Speedway in Park City, Kansas. Between there and Lakeside, both of them are in that state. We got to run there this past year, and it was just unique to get to go to places like that were a little bit bigger than what we're used to back home, and just figure it out. So I had a lot of fun competing at those places. I'm still not a big fan of bouldering tracks, so anything that's on the larger side, which is has to deal more with closer to being a half mile or 3/8. Those are, more my thing versus a small track. But hopefully we can get back to those venues in 2021, and our schedule allows us to, travel out past the Midwest, or, past the West Coast, actually, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm sure getting to go out there to areas like John and George. Hold on, I need a minute here.
Hey, no worries, man.
Okay, here's something. So you went to Arizona recently this year, and you raced against in a 410 against some outlaw, like not outlaw cart, World of Outlaws drivers. Did you ever think when you were first starting and testing that sprint car that you were going to be racing against guys like Donnie Schatz?
No, I did not. I thought that was going to be a lot longer down the road. And fortunate enough, we just got the opportunity to go 410 racing and give it a shot. And the Arizona trip was great. We got some good laps under my belt and got a little bit more comfortable in the seat. And that was our first race of the year, too. So, I mean, it's not like we had ran anywhere else, not even a limited, not even a 360. And so getting to go down to Arizona and run against Lance Deweese. We also had Aaron Reitzel, Donnie, Tony Stewart. The list goes on, the Selzy brothers. So there was so much phenomenal competition that I got to learn from. And it was just an honor, I guess, to be in the field and be a part of that event.
Mm-hmm. Back to outlaw carts. You in your, I think it was your, no, it wasn't your, in your last race that you won, there was a good part of the start of the race that you followed your teammate Landon.
Yes.
Just something I've always wondered. What was going through your head when you're following him and he spits?
It got me pretty worried. I thought that we weren't going to be able to make it out of it. And racing with the teammate, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely we have the most respect for each other on the whole track, and we know, like, hey, let's not wad each other both up here. Let's try to at least get one house cart in victory lane. So there's definitely that mutual respect there, and we make each other better, I guess would be the best way to put it. And he's just a heck of a wheelman. He won the championship last year, so he's definitely been one of the guys to beat this season, and we just have a lot of fun racing together. And when an incident like that happens, we just kind of can both hold our breath and hope that we don't collect both of us. But fortunate enough, it just tore up my wing a little bit, and he was able to also keep going.
And something I've always wondered is, with outlaw carts and most dirt track cars, actually, you don't have mirrors. Can you kind of hear when another car is coming close to you, or do you just kind of look a little? Or
yeah, I think it's a lot of reaction and just knowing where people are at, as well as listening. It's a lot of just hearing and trying to figure out where other guys are at, and that's you just kind of rely on your senses and hope for the best at that point. No mirrors, so it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Definitely, I could imagine that. And I do want to go with a couple stories. So this one I heard already, but I'm sure people who are watching this might not have. So the double engine swap story. That was an interesting one.
Yeah, the double engine swap. Pretty much what happened was we had an issue with our engine on one of our speed weeks and it was overheating. So we went to the next night. The first night that happened was at Cottage Grove. I think we ran like fifth or sixth. Had an engine problem though. So the next morning we were competing at Cottage Grove. We got up early. We put our backup engine in and we pulled out our primary engine. And our backup engine we ran, it sounded good, fired it up. We ran it for qualifying and it dropped a cylinder and that's not good. It started sounding funny and it started not running as up to par. So we changed a couple things. We went out for the heat race, still wasn't fixed. It wasn't running good then at all. So we started ninth in the feature, and right before that, we actually made the decision that, hey, we need to put our engine that wasn't running good, our primary one that we started out the night with, that was overheating, we need to put that one back in and take this one out because our backup engine actually had more damage to it because it was going to blow up. It was going to break. There's no way it was going to finish. And that's what we ended up doing. It took about 18 minutes, scramble, pull it out, push the car in, drop our other one in using the winch in our trailer, and then put everything back together and hope it's all tight and go out there. And we ended up winning the 25 lap A main event from ninth. So it was pretty gnarly. It was crazy that it that it all happened so quickly, and that made for a good vlog.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like the nights that go okay, it's like no problem. It's like you're running decent, but the nights that it's like everything seems to go wrong are the ones that you seem to win.
Yeah, it is crazy how that does happen. And that night it just played out that everything went our way and we were able to run a phenomenal race. And our engine that we put back in, it ran good. It just was a little hot, but not too bad.
I'm sure it wasn't as bad as the one when Carly pulled in with the sprint car and it was shooting the water out.
Yeah, it wasn't that hot. It wasn't that hot.
Any other interesting stories?
One interesting story I could tell, it was funny. Red Bluff lately, we've all been kind of running harder tire compounds, and that's not something we've always done, but I remember the first time that we did it, which pretty much means with the harder tire compound, the car grips to the track more if that grip is there, which in the form of like rubber or abrasiveness. And I remember when we were first trying it out, we tried it once and it didn't work because the track was not ready for it. And I was pretty much just slipping and sliding around. And I dropped anchor really, really bad. I'm talking like was running like 14th. Like I was done. And then we tried it again the next week and we absolutely smoked the field. Like the track was ready for it and no one else did it. And we did. And, we were out there running 3/10 faster than everyone, sliding guys left and right, passing cars. I think we started 7th and absolutely walked away from the field. So that's one of my favorite stories to tell working with Factory QRC. That was I think that was probably my 7th or it was like my 8th or 9th race with them. And we were just trying some stuff. And now it's funny. What we did back then is now what everyone's doing now. And we're all kind of more on an even playing field.
Mm-hmm. And something you mentioned in a video, I don't remember if it was recent or if it was an older one, but the track at Red Bluff tends to change. Like usually it's a track, you got a track and it every time it's around the top, every time it's around the bottom. With Red Bluff, you say that changes a lot.
Yeah, it does change a lot. It usually starts out the night around the top, and then as it loses grip, because it starts out very fast, it usually moves down to the bottom at some point because a lot of guys will run the top early in the night and then the bottom will come in. And then it all just depends from there where everyone runs, and that'll determine if the bottom or the top is better. One of the main reasons the top is better is because of the banking up there, even though it's farther around. So, and then usually the track gets to a point where it gets its slowest, and then after that, it starts to speed back up because it starts to take rubber and eat up our tires. And we go back to turning similar times to qualifying by the main event.
Is there any other track that that does that?
Not really. Most tracks, if they do, they don't do it as much as Red Bluff does. Red Bluff, there's a lot of factors, which actually I'm uploading one of my own podcasts today, and we talk a lot about that. So it's just I've seen tracks do it before, but definitely not as often as we've seen Red Bluff do it this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something I want to ask you about is you vlog at your races. What is it like for some of the other drivers knowing, hey, this guy's recording at this race, or what is it like what was it like first starting out as well?
Definitely nerve wracking, obviously, because there's you always think like, what are people thinking about you, or that, I guess. But the biggest is you just kind of get over it, and it's like, hey, I'm here to make my videos and to showcase what we do here on a weekly basis. So I'm not 100% sure what other drivers think about it. I just know that it's kind of like my job now, and it's just a part of what I do, and I mainly 99% of that is I just enjoy doing it. So it's something we're going to continue to do into the future. And it started out as something that was tough, and it's kind of evolved now into something that's really, really fun. And we obviously do it a lot more and try to post as much content as possible.
Mm-hmm. Something I noticed recently, I was watching back and I went down to the ones that I was in, if you remember those ones.
Yeah.
And that second night, I noticed the preview that it shows. It kind of will show the little preview at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's got me and my brother in it. Like, whoa.
That's cool.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, something, there's a lot of things that are like that where it's like you kind of got to start it. And once you start to do it, it's just kind of becomes normal. Like for me, that was kind of getting and starting helping out guys in racing. Like it started out, I was Facebook messaging this race team about maybe racing, and they said, well, you can come help in the pits. And I go one night, and now I'm really great friends with them. I'm helping them out this entire next summer. And this year it was tough because we moved to Montana, and it's like, well, I don't have anyone to help out. But I went to the track and I started asking around, and it's like nobody needed help until I got to these one people. They were the people I help out, Jordan Tossi. They said they needed. I asked, and they said they'd let me help. So, and they've been paying for my pit pass whenever I go, and they're really nice people. And
that's very neat.
The story that I like to tell about this is, so he builds his own chassis, and he's still really new to modifieds. He's really good at the super stocks, but he's not as good at modifieds. So he's racing his modified, and 1 week he's at the baseline setup and he's fast. The next week he tries to adjust on it to make it faster, and it's slower. So he goes the other way on the adjustment, and it's still slower. And eventually, I missed this race. He goes and he sets it back to baseline, and he runs second that night. And that weekend, that Sunday, which there's no racing at Big Sky on Sundays, he takes it out. He runs 100 laps.
Wow.
And gets a notebook built up. And the next weekend, he comes back and he just whoops the field.
Wow.
And the next night, Kenny Wallace is there. So.
That's cool.
On my wall right there, I don't know if you can see it, I've got a little pit pass right there. And that's the one that we were the winners. So
that's neat. That's cool to hang up.
I have a cup full of all of my pit passes from this year, and that one's the winner.
That's awesome.
I guess I don't really have any more.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Something I always have enjoyed doing is talking to people who are in positions that I want to eventually go into. So this has definitely been fun.
That's awesome.
So thank you, and thank everybody for watching. This has been the Skates and Wheels podcast. Next week, there will be more talk about hockey, hopefully. But for me and for Tanner Holmes, deuces.
Deuces.